Welcome back. In the pots today, we have a colorway inspired by the beauty and absolutely amazingness that is Arizona. This one is called Arizona Nights. It's a stunning colorway full of beautiful reds, nice deep blues, and kind of a smoky green. But we'll get to that at the end of the video. First, let's get this yarn into the pots themselves. So basically what we're doing here is we're working with a DK weight. And once we have everything lined up, we're going to take and add a little bit of soak. Soak for us is a little bit of water and some citric acid. Now the whole point of soak, it's actually got two reasons. Number one, we're going to drop the pH of the solution in the water itself, which is going to allow those acid dyes to adhere to the yarn. The lower the pH, the faster that dye is going to stick. And the extra water, the extra fluid, that's going to give us a little bit more movement with the dye itself. So this is still what we would call a low immersion dye. We've got next to nothing when it comes to fluid in the pots themselves, but it's enough that it allows that dye to move a little bit without mixing too much. We're also going to be doing what we call creating the valley. So basically we spread out the yarn a little bit and we allow basically a couple ridges to build up on both the top and the bottom, and that's going to allow us to put a dark color like this beautiful blue into the middle here, and it's not going to travel too far. Now if this blue was to travel too far, it would completely take over the pots and you wouldn't be able to see any of the other colors. So beautiful valley kind of stops the dye from going too far, and we can have that high contrast color that we're really looking for here. Now we are going to do something a little bit different here. We are going to have the same color on the top as the bottom. So we're going with kind of a burgundy, bright reds kind of mix here. I know it's not really coming through in the videos, but it is a dark red, but it is a bright red, if that makes any sense. I don't want to say mahogany, but let's reach over into the burgundy side of things and say that's what color this is. So we're going to throw it on the top, and I don't know if you remember back in elementary school, but if you take a blue and a red and you mix them, what you get is basically purple. So that's the point of the valley in here. We want to keep that blue from really taking over this red. We want that red to shine. We're putting that red on not only the top, but the bottom to make sure that your end result comes through with a little bit more red than the other colors. And that's really what we want to have come through on this colorway, just that beautiful deep red that we're all in love with. Now reds are usually pretty hard, so the one thing I like to do when I'm doing reds is I cook them off for an exceptionally long time. Normally when we're cooking a colorway, I would say between 10 and 12 minutes. This colorway, we're going to take it right up there, and we're going to cook it off for a full 15 minutes. So a nice long time. We're going to get the heat in there, get them cranked up. You want the end result to be close to over 70 degrees Celsius. You definitely don't want it boiling in any way, shape, or form. I would even go so far as to say you don't really want it simmering. You just want it hot, nice and steamy. And that's going to help set that color and make sure that it doesn't bleed. As always, if you're dyeing yarn, make sure you're wearing the proper PPE, but get your fingers in there and get it dirty. You want this dye to be pushed down at least 50% of the way through the yarn itself. If not, what you can see happen is a little bit of white will come through on the hank itself, and especially if we're caking it, you'll see that white come through. It'll be darker on the outside or lighter on the inside, or some variation of saturation that's not the same throughout the entire hank. So make sure that you're pushing that dye down. You want to have enough dye in there that it's going at least halfway through the colorway itself. Not necessarily all the way through, because we like to flip this yarn over and get some new colors on the other side and really bring out that variegation. So now that we got it all cooked up, we're going to flip this yarn over. And while we're flipping this yarn over, I want to take a quick second to thank one of our newest video sponsors, Connie B. So thank you so much, Connie. I really appreciate you sponsoring today's video. It means the world to me. And I look forward to being able to produce more videos like this for you. Now, if you'd like to become one of our studio insiders, head over to our YouTube channel, click on memberships, and sign up to be one of our studio insiders. Not only will you be able to partake in our members only poll, which will guide us in future videos on which colorways we're going to produce videos for, as well as helping us decide what new colorways we're going to produce in general. But you'll also be entered into a draw for member shoutouts, just like this one, as well as you'll be added to the credits at the end of the video as a membership sponsor. I'll be sure to put a link in the description below for easy access, but you can also do it directly from our YouTube channel. Now that we've got this yarn all flipped over, I just want to point out, if you're looking in behind the yarn itself, you can see that the soak, the water is nice and clear. There's no real dye left over, so we're not going to have a lot of bleeding of that red. Reds, like I said before, they're kind of hard. They like to kind of have a mind of their own and do their own thing. We're going to cook them off and make sure that doesn't happen. So giving them a little extra time in the pots is definitely what they needed. Now across the top on this side, we're going to put some of that smoky green. So it's kind of a dark grayish green, very moody green, that's for sure. Basically throwing in a little bit of chestnut and a little bit of gray into a forest green will produce this moody green that I really like to take and produce. So we're going to throw it on top. That's going to mix in with that burgundy red from the other side. Not completely, but there's going to be some of it mixing up, and you can kind of see across the top here how it's pulling through. What it's really doing is making that red, that burgundy, kind of a smoky red burgundy. It's really darkening it up on the other side. Across the bottom, we're going to go with a darker burgundy red. Kind of pull that red onto this side as well. Like I said, the end colorway, we want a lot of red in it. Not 100% red, but I would say probably close to 70 to 80% of this colorway is red. Now in the middle here, we are throwing in some gray, and what this does is it breaks up the white, kind of softens that white, that undyed portion of the yarn without adding too much color to the colorway itself. So it gives us some lighter tones without taking away from what was already there. Gray it's a great addition to almost every colorway. I don't use it in every colorway, but it is a great addition, especially if you're just looking to extend what you already have going in the pots without adding too much to it in the first place. So keeping some separation between that green and the red, gray is a perfect addition to this colorway, especially a nice light gray like a mouse gray or something like that. Now once again, get your fingers in the pot, get it all mixed up. You're going to push that dye down, make sure it's penetrating, make sure that we're getting at least 50% of the way through, even on the backside, and then it's time to cook it off. Now, generally speaking, when we're cooking off the backside of the yarn, I like to make sure that we're hitting that 70, 75 degrees Celsius. Not boiling, but definitely hot. Once the yarn comes out, we give it a quick rinse. We give it a quick dry. Well, maybe not so quick. 1 to 2 days in the racks. But it's time to twist the yarn up. So starting here, we're working with our fingering weight. Nice light 80/20 merino nylon. Superwash, of course. Absolutely loves to suck up color. Generally speaking, with our fingering weight, there's not as much white that comes through as compared to the DK weight. And white is not necessarily a bad thing. That's basically us trying to make sure that we're not oversaturating the yarn, make sure that we're keeping that high contrast. And when you're working with it, those white areas tend to disappear in the color. It doesn't really stick out as much as people think it does. Up next, we have our DK weight, and you can already see there is a little bit more white in this. But again, when you're working with it, that white just kind of disappears. It's maybe one stitch of white, and it really pairs off quite nicely with that gray in there. And it doesn't come through. It doesn't stand out as much as one would expect. As always, tuck those ends in. Make sure they're nice and pushed in. It really cleans up the skein, makes it absolutely beautiful. And I know when we send it in the mail, some of these ends do tend to poke back out, but before it goes in the mail, I like to make sure it's at its prettiest. Lastly, we have the worsted weight. This would be my go-to weight, of course. I absolutely love working with the worsted. It's a beautiful base. There's no other word for it, really. And it is so incredibly soft and fluffy and bouncy and everything else you could hope to want in a skein. Our worsted weight is 100% merino. No added nylon, but it is still strong enough for any project, especially next to skin projects. Beautiful colorway. You can see how those reds and blues are kind of pairing together. You got a little bit over into the purple, kind of in the burgundies. Really pulls it together. And here you can actually see that red coming through in the light box. So a nice dark wine red. That's how I'm going to call it. Kind of drifts off into those blues, You can see just a hint of the green at the top. It does play down into a little bit of the skein further down below. A little bit tough to see on this fingering weight. There we go. On this DK weight, we can really see that green coming through. Beautiful, beautiful color. I love working with the DK weight as well. It's soft and fluffy and bouncy and absolutely amazing. My favorite in the pots is the fingering weight, though. I don't know if it's the extra strands that really pull the color in or what it is, but in the pots themselves, fingering is beautiful to work with. And of course, outside of the pots, my favorite is the worsted weight. Absolutely stunning. Beautiful texture. Really pulls it all together. Great color. Now we're only going to do the 3 here because that chunky weight has been pulled. We've only got a few chunky left in the studio right now, but there should be more coming in the fall. Now on the Swift here, we're going to throw the DK weight. We're going to do a swatch and a cake in the DK weight, but I wanted to show the ties. So there are 2 ties in every one of our hanks. One of them is going to be a 4-strand, just like this one. Now what that consists of is a tie around the yarn, the start, and the finish, the end of the hank. One of them is going to basically be on top, and I'm going to consider that the start of the hank, and one is going to kind of tuck in behind. Now it's hard to tell, so if you start spooling it off here, looks like this one's on top, and we can see this one, it definitely tucks in behind. So this is the end of the hank. We're going to just kind of throw it into the Swift there. You don't want too much hanging down. It's going to get spun up pretty fast, and especially if you're caking or something like that, you don't want to get tied up in anything. So try and keep it nice and short. Make sure it's not going to get caught up in anything. And yeah, there we go. Now, first of all, I'm going to throw this over into the Addy Express to do up our swatch. I am not an Addy expert in any way, shape, or form, but you can see we got a little device there on the crank on the handle, and that allows me to hook up a drill to it. I would not suggest hooking up a drill to your Addy Express. Yes, it makes life a lot easier for me. I can do a swatch in probably 3 or 4 minutes. But for anybody else who's actually trying to produce a hat or a scarf or a tube or anything like that, this is very, very hard on your Addy Express. I end up having to replace my Addy probably, I'd say once every 8 or 9 months. So once a year, twice a year, depending on how it goes. Using a drill is very, very hard on these machines. I would not suggest it. But the cool thing is we get to watch basically the patterning in the swatch itself, which you can see is quite variegated. I'm not seeing a lot of color pooling. I'm not seeing any spiraling or anything like that. Now this is the Addy Express King size, so the only way you're going to get this exact same swatch is to use this exact same machine with the same tension as I'm using. But you can really see it doesn't even come out stripy or anything like that. It's beautiful. Beautiful color. I love it so much. We can kind of see that blue coming through. We got some little bit of green in there, but the majority of this colorway is those reds, those burgundies, and that light, almost a country pink, a country rose, if you will. Now over into the caker. This is a electric caker by Romarin. I have a lot of people ask me what kind of caker I use. They are not the most cost effective, but they are incredibly good at what they do. We produce probably more cakes than the average person will ever produce, and it is very rare that I have to replace one of these machines. You probably do 20,000 cakes on this machine without having too many issues. For us, the only time we've really had an issue with this caker is when we overheat it because we used it too much. But the average person, this machine will last you a lifetime. Again, that's a Romarin caker. It's also the twister we use is by Romarin as well. Incredible machines. Definitely built to last. And no, they're not paying me anything to say that. I just believe in their product. Okay, so we got this all caked up. Everything's looking pretty good, but we're going to get it over into the light box here and just check out that saturation across the skein, the hank. Make sure that everything dyed up beautifully, as it should. So we throw it in here, we look at the inside, we look at the outside. I'm not seeing a lot of color difference. It looks like it's fairly well saturated throughout the entire colorway. Looking around the outside, I'm not seeing anything that jumps out. I would say this is a beautiful recipe. I say beautiful a lot. Did you know that? I'm not going to go back and count how many times I've said beautiful, but it's probably quite a few. Anyways, this colorway is amazing. Everything looks great. I am quite happy with this dye. Very happy with how it turned out. So now it's time to look at some pairings. So first up we have Arizona Nights. Beautiful colorway. Got those deep rich blues, beautiful burgundies, kind of fade off into a country rose pink, if you will. A dusty rose, maybe. And then up beside that, we're going to have Wild Onion. So we've still got some of that same red in there, same burgundy, and we've got some of that same smoky green that plays across. So this is probably one of the better colors to pair up with this one. Yeah, it really comes through. I love that green. It's probably one of my favorites. And then you've got some nice dark burgundies to go with it. Kind of pairs up on the darker side of things. Up beside that, we have Raspberry Delight. So again, we're still running those burgundies, but we're also pushing off into some of the darker purples. So we've got a nice dark plum in there. And of course, we've got these burgundies that really play well with both Wild Onion and Arizona Nights. Now, this doesn't necessarily need to go in this order. You could even grab this Raspberry Delight, throw it on the other side, and have Arizona as your final in a fade. But yeah, beautiful colors. They all go really, really well together. Up beside that, Where Pixies Play. This one is still playing into the purples, but we're starting to move off into kind of a turquoise blue, a violet purple, ultraviolet, maybe not ultraviolet, but we definitely move over into the purple side of things with a little bit of those lighter blues. I think that pairs up quite nicely with Raspberry Delight, kind of pulls those purples and moves us in a little bit of a different direction. Beside that, I'm going to put From the Fae, and we've got some of those dark midnight blues, kind of a little bit of the pinky purples with the dusty rose in there. This one's also got a little bit of speckling in it. You can kind of see them coming through there. It's not heavy in the speckling, but it's definitely got some of that lighter speckling. And it plays really, really well into the blues of Where Pixies Play. So that would be my pick for this one here. We've got 4 colorways that go with it quite nicely, plus Arizona Nights. Over into the semi-solid side of things, we're going to start with Arizona Nights, of course. Get it into the center here, if I can get it to sit. Stay. Ah, good girl. All right. Then we're going to take and throw in some Plum. Plum for me is one of those that really goes, it goes with anything that's got some purple in it. It is a little bit on the darker side, but it is a beautiful addition. There's a beautiful again. It's a beautiful addition to anything that's running into the purple or the blue side of things. Arizona Nights has a hint of the purple just from the mixing of the blue and the red, but that dark blue that's in there pairs up really, really well with Midnight. And like I said, Plum and Midnight, they really go hand in hand. They're one of those that just pull everything together. They really do. And if you were looking for that kind of fade, those would be the two I would grab for sure. On the other side of things, we've got Wine Time, of course, because if you have a burgundy, Wine Time is the right one. And, you pair that up with the Midnights, those two, again, they really just pull it together. I don't know, man. Everything kind of, it's beautiful. It's all beautiful. Wine Time, Midnight, stunning. Wine Time, Juniper, stunning. Wine Time and Plum, yes. Midnight and Plum, yes. I don't even know. Everything's just playing together really, really well in this set. I am beyond pleased with these semi-solids and this colorway. Now, of course, it's time for that big reveal. From left to right, we have our fingering weight, DK weight, worsted weight, and chunky weight. I don't believe the chunky is still available, but this is one of my earlier photos. And there, of course, is Arizona Nights. Thank you so much for stopping by, and thank you again to all of our sponsors. We'll see you again next time.